Welcome back to Sommelier, your tastemaker for every little thing. And today, at long last, we're talking about the bubbles, champagne, Prosecco, Cava, the differences between all of these things, and basically everything I think you need to know about the bubbles. We're gonna talk about some of my own personal adventures as well. A couple of years ago, if you do not know, we will cover this later in the episode, but champagne is only champagne if it comes from a specific region of France called Champagne. And I wanted to see what all the hullabaloo is about. So I went to Champagne, France myself when I had some time off from work for a few weeks to visit some of the champagne houses, and I'll be sharing some of that content with you here today as well, if you're ever curious what exactly is going on in Champagne with the sparkling wine there. So I'm super excited to dive right into it. But before I do, I realize now that you guys may not know a whole lot about me outside of the content. Like, Sommelier is obviously supposed to be about every little thing, all the things I feel like people should know about, different aspects of life that I found fun and interesting. But if you want to learn a little bit more about me, the sommelier, Bria, I have my own personal YouTube channel. If you're interested, I'll link it in the description box below if anyone is interested in checking out some of my adventures outside of making wine-related content and sommelier things and every little thing. But I did want to offer that to anyone who's interested to know me a little bit better. But as for this and this channel, we will likely be talking about just every little thing, and we'll talk about my life where it's appropriate. But I just wanted you guys to know that if you're interested in getting to know me a little bit more, you can at my personal YouTube channel, Bria Alexander. So check it out if you're interested. I got a lot of fun stuff about some things I was up to in the past couple of weeks, so check it out. Alrighty. Back to our regularly scheduled program. Today on Sommelier, we're going to talk about the bubbles, champagne and why it's so expensive. We're going to talk about Cava, what it is, where it comes from, Prosecco, what it is, where it comes from, words like cremant, what that is, where it comes from. We're going to talk about tasting profiles when it comes to the bubble champagne. There's different levels of sweetness. We're going to talk about what it is, how it's made, and then finally we're going to give some of my personal recommendations of my favorite bottles of champagne. The things that I feel like are worth the money. Like, as you can see, there's some pretty dramatic price points when it comes to champagne. There are some things that I think are worth the money and some things that I personally believe are not worth the money. I'm just here to tell you, Veuve Clicquot is not the only nice bottle of wine out there. I'm gonna give you some really viable, excellent options so that you don't always have to go to the yellow label. And yeah, I think it's gonna be fun. Champagne is one of my absolute favorite drinks of all time. I'll have champagne on a Tuesday, or rather I have bubbles on a Tuesday, and I think it's totally valuable. And also, price with this bubbles is not necessarily indicative of the quality. I have had some absolutely phenomenal sparkling glasses of wine from all sorts of places and not paid a whole lot of money. So I'm talking a lot about the intro. Let's dive right into it and talk about the bubbles. So before we talk about what champagne is, I want to level set on a couple things around sparkling wine, specifically what sparkling wine is. All of the fancy words that I used earlier in the episode, champagne, cuvée, Cava, Prosecco, these are all types of sparkling wines. But some sparkling wines are so famous that they are named after the town that they come from. And the most famous example of this is Champagne. But before we dive into champagne, a couple things to know about what sparkling wine all over the world is. It's exactly that. It's in the name. It's wine that has undergone a method to make it sparkling. And champagne in particular goes through a 7-step, 12-month-long process that makes it so expensive. And that's why you'll notice that champagne bottles can be an incredibly higher price point than other sparkling wines. And that's because of how it's made. It is expensive, it is time consuming, and it comes from a specific part of France called Champagne. Now, I have been to the Champagne region of France. I wanted to see it for myself, and I looked on the map when I was studying for my trip, and I was like, where is Champagne, France? There actually is no city called Champagne, France. It's a region. The actual city itself, that if you ever want to visit for yourself, is called Reims or Reims. I don't know how to pronounce French words. I'm going to work on that for you guys. But yeah, Reims, and I'm going to include some pictures and videos I took of the different wine houses I visited out there. And it was so much fun and totally worth doing if you're interested. But do know that the city is called Reims, because I was very confused because they always talk about Champagne only comes from Champagne. Where's the city of Champagne? It's not a city, it's a region. Anyway, all sparkling wine that comes from the Champagne region of France is called Champagne, but there is also wine made outside of the Champagne region of France, sparkling wine that's made outside of the Champagne region of France, that is called cuvée. Hey there, Bria from the future here. So I misspoke in this section of the video. A cremant is the name of a sparkling wine from France that is not made in the Champagne region, a Cremant. A cuvee, on the other hand, is a word that means like a mixture or a first mixture of a blend of wine, not necessarily champagne, but often used to talk about champagne. To be honest, it's confusing, but for the purposes of this video today, you need to know that champagne is made in Champagne, France, but all other sparkling wines made in France are called cremants, not cuvées. And also that cremants are made with the method champenois. Anyway, I'll let myself explain it further, but I had to clarify that because I said it wrong originally. All right, have fun. See you soon. So I think I mentioned this earlier, but all sparkling wine is wine, and which means anywhere where wine is grown, sparkling wine can also be grown. And France is an incredibly rich and famous area where all sorts of wine is grown. So they've got a lot of but that's what I'm trying to say. One's made in Champagne and one's not. It's not necessarily indicative of quality. Again, they're made in the same region, just some are made in the Champagne region or some are not. Next, I want to talk about champagne labels. And honestly, I can explain all these things to you, but it explains it really, really well in this graphic that was in my Intro to Sommelier workbook. As you can see, we've got Brut, which means dry, but there's also a lot of different types of styles of champagne. If we go in order of sweetness, it's Brut Nature, Extra Brut, Brut, Extra Dry, Sec, Demi-Sec, and Doux. Obviously, the most popular one that you see is Brut, which means dry, but I've had a Demi-Sec bottle of champagne before. It's very nice. Anyway, the way they get it to be sweeter is sometimes that they add like a syrup to the champagne to make it a little bit sweeter inside, and the more syrup they put into it, the sweeter it gets. And it's nice. I like it. I've had a Demi-Sec bottle of champagne before, and you can tell the difference. It's nice. So here's a couple of things that you should know when you're reading a champagne label. I'm actually going to take out this bottle that I got from Trader Joe's for just a couple of bucks as a great example of a sparkling wine from France that is not a champagne. So if you look at the bottle, and I'll show you guys right here just so you can see it, it says Blanc de Blancs, sparkling wine from France, which means, let me explain that actually. So hi friends, Rhea from the future once more, and you'll notice that this particular bottle says that it's a Blanc de Blanc sparkling wine and it's from France. And I had shared earlier that all bottles of wine that are not made in Champagne are called cremants. Well, this one is neither a cremant or a champagne. What does that mean? Well, I shared earlier that cremants and champagnes are both made using the method champenois, but there are other way faster ways to make sparkling wine, and that is what this one appears to be. It appears to be a bottle of wine from France, meaning the grapes were crushed and made in France, but instead of using that year-long process to create this sparkling wine, they use a different type. So if we recap the whole thing, champagne made in Champagne, France, cremants made using the same method as they use in Champagne, but the grapes are actually not from Champagne, they're from a different part of France. And sparkling wine, everything else that does not use the method champenois, but the grapes are from France. I know it's a little confusing. Ask me questions in the comments, but for now, I'm gonna let myself continue the lesson, but I did want to clarify that in case anyone was confused. All right, back to our regular scheduled program. Blanc de Blanc means it's made with all 100% Chardonnay grapes, not just any white wine grapes, Chardonnay grapes. That's what Blanc de Blancs means. Blanc de Noir is another type of sparkling wine that you might see in the world. That means that it's champagne made with only the dark grapes, Pinot Noir and Meunier. Again, these French words. I'm gonna take a French class so I can give you guys better French sounding content. I'm sorry, but that's what Blanc de Noirs mean. You might see that on another bottle of sparkling wine, Blanc de Noirs. That means it's made from either Pinot Noir grapes or it's made from Meunier grapes, but those specific two types of red grapes. And so rosés, something I may not have mentioned or something I want to tell you about rosés is the way that you get rosé sparkling wine is the same way you get rosé regular wine, which is mixing a little bit of the red grapes and a little bit of the white grapes and turning them and mixing them together before you ferment them and turn them into wine. So you might have noticed if you peel a red grape versus peeling a white grape, they're all like the same color grape on the inside. What makes the rosé have its actual color are the skins of the red grapes when they mash all the grapes together before they ferment them and turn them into wine. So that's how rosé wine is made. And again, that's why it's so important. At the very top, I mentioned that sparkling wine is just regular wine that undergoes a method after it's done to turn it sparkling. It's because all the other steps that I outlined in my Wine 101 episode apply to sparkling wine. It's just then it goes through an additional step that can cost a lot of money or not, depending on the type of sparkling wine you made, that turns it sparkling, which we love a sparkling wine. Another great example, the sparkling wine that's so famous that it's named after the town it comes from is Prosecco. Now, Prosecco comes from Italy. And again, similar to Champagne, there is no actual town of Prosecco. It is a region in Italy, in northern Italy, if I'm not mistaken. But the actual town, if you want to go visit for yourself, is called Veneto, Veneto. Prosecco is made from a significantly less time-consuming method called the Charmat method. Charmat, not to be confused with Cremant, nope, Charmat method. And it only takes about 4 or 5 days to complete. And again, if you've ever had a bottle of Prosecco, you know that stuff can be quite good. And it takes a lot less time to make. Lambrusco is also another name of a famous sparkling wine in Italy that comes from the Lambrusco region. The actual town is called Emilia-Romagna. Also made from something called the Tank or Charmat method. And another famous sparkling wine that I'm really a big fan of is called Asti. It comes from the Asti region of Italy. The town is Piedmont. And sometimes you'll see something called like a Moscato de Asti on different bottles. And that is a sparkling wine local to the Asti region. But Moscato is a still wine, not a sparkling wine for those of us that are Moscato fans out there, not to be confused. But Moscato de Asti is called Asti. It's a sparkling wine local to a region in Italy. And all sparkling wine in Italy that is not from these regions, not from Asti, not from Lambrusco, and not from like the Prosecco region, those are just called sparkling wines. It's not like in France where all wines made from the method champenois is called Charmat. They don't have that in Italy. Everything else is sparkling wine. And the last famous sparkling wine I want to talk about today is called Cava. So Cava is from the Cava region of northern Spain. Actual town is called Catalunya. All other sparkling wines outside of that region are called sparkling wine. They use the method champenois, like the exact same method that they use in France, but they call it Cava. So if you're ever curious about comparing a Cava with a champagne, they are almost cousins, or a Cremant. They're all three of them in the same group that use the method champenois, time consuming, 12 months, 7 steps, lots of work. So next I want to talk about quality / bang for your buck. So I've mentioned this in passing for the 3 regions that we've covered today, for Cava, for Prosecco, and for Champagne. Now that you know how they are made, I have to once again say that the method and the price of the champagne or sparkling wine you're buying is not necessarily indicative of the quality of what you're getting. Meaning, you can have a really beautiful, expensive bottle of champagne, and you can have a really beautiful and delicious bottle of Prosecco that costs a 14th of the price. It all depends on what your taste buds are accustomed to. But the number one thing I want to make sure y'all understand from this channel is you do not have to spend $300 to get a really nice bottle of sparkling wine. I have gotten some amazing bottles of sparkling wine from my local Trader Joe's or my local Total Wine for $7. And I serve it at nice parties and people really don't know the difference. It really depends on you and it depends on what you like. So I went to Champagne, France, so I can taste the wine for myself. I went to Tattinger, I went to Vauclicot, I believe I went to Chandon. I have to double check where I went. I have to look back at the pictures. It was 2 years ago. But the point is, I went to all the nicest and most expensive champagne houses in the world. And I can tell you, the experience itself was amazing and fun. And you're in France and you're seeing the tasting houses and you're in these historic places and that's nice. But as far as what goes in my mouth and what I digest and what I put into my body, how much I enjoy it, I've had just as pleasant an experience getting a local bottle from Trader Joe's, okay? Like, you do not have to spend a lot of money to have something high quality. But let's talk about some popular mixed drinks that come from Champagne or Prosecco. So number one, the mimosa. So I, for one, used to think that mimosas had champagne in them, but now that I am a little bit more informed about how much champagne costs, I can tell you it is very rare to have a mimosa from a restaurant or a bar with actual champagne in it, because again, champagne runs $100 a bottle on average. If you're having a mimosa a week, that's just not economical. And also, I don't want to spend all my nice champagne putting it in a mixed drink. I want to drink that thing straight if I can, because again, it's super expensive and such a experience, or it's supposed to be. So I always use Prosecco in my sparkling wines, or just a cheaper bottle of sparkling wine just in my mimosas, just because it saves me money and I have just as lovely an experience. And also, champagne is something to be cherished and to put up on a shelf, okay? It's expensive and it's supposed to be, I think that's probably where it comes from. It's supposed to be drank on a special occasion because you're spending so much money on it. But with that in mind, let's talk about some champagnes that I think are actually worth the money. So my favorite bottles of champagne, somebody actually gifted this to me at my 5-year anniversary of the company that I work for. It is called the Bellecourt Salmon Rosé Vintage 2010. So I'm going to use the word vintage a couple of times. That just means the year, the vintage. It means the year that it was bottled. So yeah, when you see on any bottle of champagne, like the year 2012, 2010, 2016, 2022, whatever, that just means the year that it was bottled, right? So, and remember, if it takes 12 months for this stuff to be made, when the thing is finally done and it's bottled, it's a big deal. So that's, yeah. Anyway, my favorite, my favorite bottle of champagne, number one, is the Bellecourt Saumon Rosé 2010 vintage. You can get any real vintage of theirs. I think Bellecourt Saumon is an incredible champagne house. It's one of my favorites. Tell them to call me. I would love to try some of their wines to give you guys more of my honest opinion about them. But Bellecourt Saumon I was gifted. It's beautiful. I love it. And I gift it to other people when I have the opportunity because it is such a beautiful, delicious, exquisite bottle of wine. I found when I tasted it the first time, and when I tasted it, it really does feel like a special treat. It felt elevated, and it felt elevated and special, and like a gift, like a real gift. And I think it retails about $100 a bottle, around 80 to $100 a bottle. So really, that's the first one. It's a rosé. Yes, that's my first pick. So my next favorite bottle of wine, probably the favorite bottle of wine I have ever had in my entire life. I had it when I was on that trip in Champagne at the Taittinger Chateau. It was Taittinger's Brut Reserve 2012 vintage. I only got to try it once and I said, yeah, this is the best bottle of champagne I've ever had. I have a picture of it right here. I've never had an opportunity to taste the 2012 vintage again. I've been having trouble finding it here in the States, but if you can get your hands on a 2012 vintage Taittinger Brut Reserve, go ahead and hang on to that and hang on to it close. I thought if I ever got married, I would absolutely love for the champagne of the evening to be the Taittinger 2012 Brut Reserve. So get that one, worth the money. I thought it was a real gift, a real experience. The next thing I want to talk about is my favorite bottles of Prosecco. So I had a 2019 Alni Asti. It was super duper sweet, but it was absolutely delicious. I had it at a party I went to once. I have not been able to find it since. So again, if you see it, grab it. It was delicious. I think the person told me it cost $5. Super duper sweet, but absolutely delicious. That's another great example of like a banger that you can get for the cheap. And yeah, that's it. That's my favorite bottle of Prosecco, and those are my favorite champagnes. My current favorite bottle of sparkling wine is the Rosa Regali, which years and years and years ago, I was trying to find like the perfect Valentine's Day wine. And I asked a friend, I looked around, I had tasted this wine before, and my friend's like, yeah, you should get the Rosa Regali. And I'm like, oh my God, I already love the Rosa Regali. So this is like what I feel is like a perfect Valentine's Day wine or rosé. It's one of my favorite sparkling wines ever. It has like it's from Italy, and it has a little bit of it's not like super duper bubbly the way like a regular Brut Reserve can be. I love it. Perfect, very romantic feeling for me. And you know, Valentine's Day is just a couple months away, and whether you're single or not, that's a good one to try on by yourself or with a friend. So Rosa Regali. The next one of my favorite sparkling wines is Mum's Napa Demi-Sec. Mum Napa is one of my favorites. Mum has a winery, a chateau in France, but they also have a absolutely outstanding champagne house in Napa Valley. I'm going to do a whole episode on my time in Napa Valley. I go all the time as a Bay Area native, and I'm going to show you guys my favorite wineries and everything. But one that every single time I go to Napa, every single time, I'm not kidding you, I've been like 18 times. Like every single time I go, I always go to Mum. They got my credit card on file there. Like I'll be making a reservation at their tasting room. They're like, yeah, Brie Alexander, we know you already. Anyway, the point is, go to Mum, GH Mum, or just the winery in Napa. It's super fun and delicious. But in addition to that, one of my favorite bottles of wine is the Mum Napa Demi-Sec, which I've tried in their tasting room. And they've got a lot of other wines that are really delicious too, but the Demi-Sec really stuck with me, and I liked it a lot. And you know what? I do not have a favorite bottle of Cava because I've actually never had it. I still am trying as much as I can whenever I can, but Cava, being made for the method champenois, can be very expensive, but I love it. It's delicious. I'm sure it's delicious. And I have an idea of what it probably tastes like because of I've had a lot of champagne in my life. But yeah, Cava is another one. If anyone wants to send me one, please go ahead and do so. I'd love to try it. Or next time I'm at a nice restaurant, I might order a bottle if it's on the menu. But yeah, Cava, haven't tried it yet, so I can't recommend a favorite one, but send me some. Maybe I'll tell you what I think of it. Anyway, I think that's all I got for you today. So I want to encourage everyone, as you can see from what I've described today, I've not tried everything in the whole world. I've tried, but I still haven't gotten everything in the whole wide world. But this information about how the champagne is actually made has been super helpful for me to understand if it's worth the money or not. So just know Okay, I'm gonna say something kind of controversial, and I love you guys, you know, Jay-Z and Beyonce and your enterprise. Armand de Brigiac is really, really good, but somebody told me something that this champagne, Armand de Brigiac, has a sister winery called Catier, I believe it is. It's made from the exact same winery, except it retails for, instead of like $380 a bottle like Armand de Brigiac does, it retails for something like, maybe I think like 90, 100, same grapes, just packaged and branded differently than Ace of Spades. I have not had a chance to try Ace of Spades before in my life, but I went to a Total Wine and one of the sommeliers there told me, like, listen, get this instead. It's the exact same thing. And it was absolutely delicious. I bought it for myself for my birthday 2 years ago. And here's some pictures of me and I thought it was delicious. So while I have not had the opportunity to try Ace of Spades, AKA Armand de Brigiac, that's the fancy name for the colloquialism. If you want to try it for like a lesser price point, go ahead and grab yourself one of these. And because I really liked it and I enjoyed it. And I can't even say if Armand de Brigiac is overpriced or not, because I've never tried it, but I do know that they're made from the same grapes around the same area and with the same vintner or wine grower as Armand de Brigiac. So check them out right here. I'll include more information about them in the description box if you're interested, but something definitely worth trying. So something else about tasting sparkling wine that I want to tell you guys is that it is intended for the most part, to be served cold, around 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So you might have seen, you know, champagne on ice. You hear it in music, you see it probably on TV. You are supposed to put the champagne on ice so it can be best served cold, so you can get the full flavor profile out of what you're tasting. So do your best to taste your champagne cold. I had this bottle that I have over here in the refrigerator for the past couple of days, but beware of putting it in the freezer as a person who has experienced themselves. So if you freeze champagne, it will break, it will explode in the freezer. So do not put your champagne in the freezer. As someone who put some really, really nice champagne, thinking I wanted to chill it before serving it, I went to sleep or I just forgot. I woke up the next morning with an exploded bottle of champagne in my freezer. It was not cute, it was not fun, and it was sad because it was really expensive and I really wanted to try it and I didn't get a chance to because it exploded inside of the freezer. So do not freeze your sparkling wines and forget about them because yes, it will chill it, but all the pressure in the bottle is going to be too much for it to also solidify. So just beware of that. Something else I might also want to mention about sparkling wines I lost my train of thought. Oh, okay. So I know it is very popular for people to shake up sparkling wines, shake up champagne on a special occasion, like, please don't do that with expensive champagne. It takes a lot of time and effort to make it. So it can be very dangerous. And something else, as a person who has experienced this firsthand, let me tell y'all something. I'm just gonna do it for you guys right now. So here's the thing about sparkling wines, period. It can be very, very, very dangerous to open them. So I saw an example once on the internet of a man throwing a bottle of champagne into the wall. It's smacking into like like the stairs or something and ricocheting back at them. And honestly, you can get seriously injured. I know it sounds like such a mom thing to say and I'm not a parent, but genuinely you need to be careful because you can put your eye out regular opening a bottle of champagne. So I'm gonna open this one for you guys right now, just so I can illustrate what I'm talking about. So as you can see here, you open it, you get the wrapper off of it, and then you have this like, I forget the name of it. It's like a tent on top. I'm gonna show you guys. And this one is corked. This particular bottle of sparkling wine is corked, as you can see. And so this right here, this is what protects the cork. There's a lot of, you know, I didn't go into the details about like the method champenois because I think it's a little bit granular and frankly, you don't need to know. All you really need to know is that it takes a really long time to make and that's why it's so expensive. But there are a lot of pressure inside of this from all the sparkles or carbon dioxide or whatever, like what makes it sparkling. You guys know this if you ever open a bottle. It has a big pop, the liquid comes out, it's a big thing. But it's a lot of pressure and this cork is coming out fast, okay? Like I know it's super, and this like tent here is intended to make sure that the cork is secure so that it doesn't immediately like put your eye out when you do it. So I'm talking a lot, but what I'm trying to say is once you take this thing off, you really need to be cognizant of making sure that you are not pointing the bottle anywhere near your body. Like, I say this because I've experienced it myself, where you open a bottle of wine that might have been shaking around in the car when you brought it home, or shaking around in the refrigerator as you're opening it and closing it, and you may be talking with a friend like I was, and you might point the bottle to you as you're trying to open it, or you point it to yourself as you're trying to open it. You do not know how strong, how strong it's going to come out. You don't know how carbonated it is. So as soon as this like tent thing comes off, you need to make sure it's pointed directly above you or away from you as you open it. What I also recommend to make it a little bit easier for you to open bottles is you put a cloth on top of it as you open it. I'm gonna demonstrate in just a moment. Grab my cloth. Traditionally in the dining room, if you're ever gonna order a bottle of sparkling wine in a dining room setting or at a fancy restaurant, you'll notice that they're going to do everything in their power to make sure it has like not a huge big pop. It is actually like seen as a really good thing to have a very small, like non-existent noise. And the way they do it is they cover it with a towel, they point away from themselves, and they should have like a very small, if anything, like a little bit of, like that's the goal is to not make a noise at all, because it doesn't always have to be this big pop balloon, like big thing. But if I TLDR and everything I gotta say to y'all, I just said here, y'all, just please be careful opening these bottles. It can be very, very dangerous because there's a lot of pressures in them, whether it's champagne, sparkling wine, or whatever. If it's corked, you don't know how fast that cork will be coming out at you, and you wanna be as careful as you can. So I'm gonna be opening this with my champagne towels I got. I love these, they're super cute. I got them from the Domaine Carneros gift shop when I went to visit them in France. And fun fact, Domaine Carneros in Napa and Tattinger in France are actually sister, brother, sibling wineries. So they may not get the grapes from the same place, but they're grown in the same method. So just know that if you want to have one of my favorite bottles of champagne and you're in America, the closest you can get, well, depends on like how easy or accessible flying is to you, but you can get pretty close by going to Domaine Carneros. I enjoyed it. Anyway, let's open this thing. Okay, the thing is off, so now I have to be extremely careful about pointing this towards myself. I'm gonna put this on top of here and let's see how this goes. Woo! And there you have it. Hey, that made a little bit more of a pop than like, you know, you're supposed to in like a fancy dining room setting, but we're not a fancy dining room setting. We're at my house. So something I also want to cover is how champagne is served traditionally. I'm sure we are all familiar with the champagne flute. These are some of my favorites. I think I got them from Crate and Barrel. These are from Crate and Barrel. I love them. I think they're absolutely stunning. I think I bought them for myself as a Christmas gift to myself, but absolutely stunning. But this is an excellent example of a traditional champagne flute. This is what it looks like. Now, champagne flutes are shaped like this because if you have ever had champagne in like a larger glass, you'll know that all the bubbles make it very, very fragrant in your nose, and you don't want to like snort those fragrances. It could be not a fun experience. That's why when you drink champagne, you shouldn't be able to smell it. You shouldn't be able to really smell it unless you like put it to your nose like this and smell it. But as you're drinking, you shouldn't be able to smell it because it's so small. Contrast that to a red wine glass. Contrast that to a red wine glass. When you're drinking red wine, you want to smell it. You see how my nose kind of like falls into the glass? It's because you want to smell it as you're drinking it, but it is because it makes it like a more pleasant experience. It is not necessarily that way for like a champagne flute. So that's one thing to note about champagne flutes. They became more popular in the roaring 20s, but before champagne flutes were invented, champagne was traditionally drank out of coupe glasses. Glasses, champagne trays, whatever you want to call them. I love these. I got these from Amazon. I thought they were super duper cute. Anyway, coupe glasses, champagne trays. They're another way that champagne was traditionally drank. I personally like to drink my champagne out of a flute. I'm very partial to the flutes that I have. But another way champagne is traditionally drank is in these lovely coupe glasses. But as I mentioned earlier, when you drink it, you can kind of get the fragrance of the champagne into your nose, and that could be a little bit overwhelming. So anyway, I prefer a coupe glass as a person who has drank some very bubbly champagne out of a open glass and smelled and snorted, and it was a very not demure moment for me in front of other people. So I typically try to drink my champagne out of a flute. There's so much I want to tell you guys. Every time I think I'm done, I remember something else. So we've just opened a bottle of champagne. It was delicious and amazing, but I'm not about to drink this entire bottle of champagne by myself tonight. So instead of letting it sit and like lose all of its lovely effervescence, I am gonna tell you guys about these things that I got when I went to the Veuve Clicquot winery in France. I bought 2 of them. Now I just have one, but it's, you see it has like Veuve Clicquot's branding on it, but I love these things. You put them on top of the wine, you flip the thing here, and it will like preserve, it'll preserve the bubbles so that it could stay bubbly and you don't have to drink it all at once. Now, I've said this before on my TikTok for those of you who follow me here, but wine in general is not intended to be drank more than 3 days after you've opened it. So wine is food like everything else, and it can go bad. And again, sparkling wine is just wine that's gone through a process to make it sparkling. So same thing, I've got 3 days if I want to enjoy this lovely bottle of wine that I have, bottle of sparkling wine that I have here. But if you leave it out, as you guys know, if you leave something bubbly out for a long time without any covering on top of it, it's gonna lose its bubbles. This does an outstanding job. I think they're called, I don't know, I call them champagne toppers. I'll find like the official name for them and put them in the video. But I love these. These are my absolute favorite like champagne toppers, and they have helped me preserve some of my favorite bottles of wine that I didn't want to drink all at once. And they're amazing. They only work though for sparkling wines. Like I haven't had any success using these with my regular bottles of wine, but these are amazing for this. And I'm gonna pop this in the fridge in a moment when I'm done here. And then when I want to taste it again, you just flip it back up, and it preserves the sparkles in them. It's amazing. Now, I bought another one of these from another winery I went to. I don't remember, I've been to many wineries, but I got one of these that does a similar thing. You open it here, you go like this, you push down, and it's intended to grab and it worked. It's intended to grab the bottom, of the bottle, and it's another way you can preserve sparkling wines, but you really just can't beat the ease of this. I had 2 of them, as I said. Someone took the other one because they saw and they're like, yeah, I think I'm gonna take this one too. But yeah, I still have one. It's my absolute favorite one. Veuve Clicquot, if you see this, please send me more, or anyone, because I just love the ease of these and I use them all the time. Anyway, yes, if you guys are interested, I think these are called champagne stoppers, and they are available wherever wine is sold, and just at different wineries that you might visit or attend, or just your local, or Amazon, honestly, where we get everything else. You can probably get some from Amazon. But yeah, it's something I wanted to share with you all about ways that you can preserve a really nice bottle of sparkling wine and also maintain the bubbles so you don't lose the bubbles after you open it. Alrighty, so I've been talking a lot, and that's all I've got for you this episode. Please, 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 I'm doing my best Sabrina Carpenter interpretation here to tell me what y'all like. Tell me what you like to try. Tell me what you have tried. Tell me what you think is worth the price. Like, I love sparkling wines. I really, really do. Every time I go tasting, I try to get my hands on more sparkling wine because it feels like such a gift to have a really nice, high quality sparkling wine either gifted to me or I can gift to other people. You give sparkling wines on birthdays, you have them on New Year's. It feels like such a special occasion. When you could find like a really good one that doesn't taste too dry in your mouth, I feel like it really is something to note and to share with other people. So tell me if you guys liked this episode. Tell me if this was helpful for you. Tell me all the things, please. Leave your comments in the description box. I wanna know what y'all think and I wanna know what y'all like. Anyway, in the interim, I will see you guys next time on Sommelier. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Bye for now.